Car meditation. I know it's been a minute. Ain't been too long though. Let's talk about the word maturity. Maturity. Well, ladies and gentlemen, age doesn't make you mature. Nor does your gray hair, nor does you picking up a little weight, nor does you getting skinny because you're getting older physically. Age does not bring maturity. There are a lot of people, surprisingly, that are maybe should be our elders walking around who may still act like a kid or be clueless like a kid in their head, men and women. But you tend to know you mature when certain things you just kind of grow away from. Like, I'll give an example. Me, I love hip hop. Everybody know that. Die hard Wu-Tang fan. Tupac, any hip hop that was reigning in the 80s and 90s. It's like that's my area. But I love all genres of music, but hip hop, that's my love. But as I got older, I didn't want to hear about killing, and if someone's telling a story, that's one thing. But I don't want to hear about killing and kids and beating people. It's like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that, man. And especially at this age, it's like, I don't want to. Who wants to? I can't sit and listen to that all damn day, and I'm sorry, younger generation. That's why a lot of people from my era, call y'all music whack, because it's like, as much as we may have had an element of that, it was a lot of storytelling, and even the most raunchiest music of that era of time, it was a lot of fun, and some of it was a little my mom, but like, turn that up, but it was always a artistry to it. So at this age, even if I hear some of the older things, it's like I hear the artistry in it, and I hear the fun in it, or I hear this, or I hear that, or I hear the seriousness in it, or I hear somebody telling a story about how hard their life is, and they're not just talking about wasting time and BS, and not doing nothing productive for the further movement of humanity and culture. So it's like, I grow from that, and I kind of feel like, man, somebody gonna pay for us putting out all this junk about killing each other, and it's like, hey, who's gonna pay? Hey, hell, we paying. But anyhow, and when I think of maturity, it made me think about my grandfather, and it was one time I had to write a paper for school, and I had to watch this movie, and the movie was called Sankofa, and in the movie, the young lady was a model, and she was modeling on the shores in Africa where the slave ships came and where they would keep people chained up in a basement. And she had, a British photographer out there taking pictures of her, and it was like, this land is considered has a certain sacredness to it, even though it has the ills of where slave ships shored at and came in and chained people up. It still had this, like, you respect the fact that your elders was here and such and such. So it turned that she went down into this dungeon where they used to keep the slaves chained up waiting for the ships to come. And the movie did this thing where, and this is a very, very old movie, so it was in the 90s, but it was you could tell it was filmed like very, very old. And so she went back in time, when she went down there, like flashed, and she saw a bunch of slaves in chains, and before you know it, she was in chains, and then she was on the plantation, and they were beating her, and they was showing all the things that was going on, and how they was, ripping people apart, and whipping people, and everything like that, and I'll never forget, my grandfather came in, and he came back from getting his morning paper, and I'm sitting at the table, and I'm like taking notes and everything. He said, "What is this?" And I said, all right, that's this movie I gotta watch. I gotta write a paper on it. And he was like, turn that off. I can't, And he's like, I can't watch that. I can't do that. And later on, after I, turned it off and everything, and later on I talked to him, and he was like, one day he said, you're going to get older. And he said the things you would have lived through, you're not going to want to hear them. And you're not going to want to see them. And you're not going to want to talk about it too long. And I was like, well, granddad, I was like, he said, I've actually seen people hang from trees. He said, I actually saw people get hung, choked, whipped, cut, beat to death, head split open, like watermelons. And he said, so I don't want to see nothing really relative to that. And he said, it was a time where, I would pay attention to that to get me in a place to go do things for the sake of those people who may have been hurt. He said the South was different. He said, it was a time where we were able to go back and, deal with people that dealt with us and did certain things to people and things of that nature. But he said, I don't want to see that. I can't do that. And I think about that now, like when I, hear certain things and see certain things, just like, movies, they got like a lot of gang violence. It's like, I don't want to see that. I grew up seeing that in the street. It's like in certain music that's just about street killing and killing and killing and killing. It's like, I don't want to hear that, man. I can't handle it. It's like I'm too far mature from that. It's like, not that I'm my grandfather's age, but it's like I don't want to hear about that, and especially when it's like that's what's happening in the world right now. Kids are dying every day, and shootings and everything. Kids can't go to proms, they can't go to schools, they can't go to games, they can't have parties, they can't. It's like I don't want to hear that. I don't want to put that in my brain, and that's what I'm getting back to. Our brains, our mindsets make us mature. Everything else, you can be straight white in the head and in the face, and and it's like your maturity is when your mindset changes, when you grow, you start seeing things, start applying wisdom to the knowledge that you have attained, and then you get a greater understanding. You start realizing that you're not gonna make it out here on your own. You need God. You need some type of spiritual practice. You need some type of eternal practice to believe in. No matter what you want to call it, you need some type of eternal discipline. You find that you need physical discipline. You find that you need mental discipline. You find that you have to structure things. At least you should. Can't promise that everybody does. Not everybody does. Some people live by the seats of their pants. Some people, keep things, they live risky, but they still keep certain things organized because that discipline helps them attack those risks. But you just find that you mature into certain things, and when that old saying, when you know better, you do better. Now, sometimes it's easier said than done, because sometimes you may have follied things so much and messed up things so much that you got to really rebuild and grow. And sometimes life takes you a different direction and things change. Sometimes the situation you may have planned, whether it's relationships or workplaces, you may have planned on being there, and life is taking you a certain way. But that doesn't mean that it has to end or that it's over. You just got to learn how to adapt and pivot and understand that when you're mature, you just know that, man, life come with the hits, things happen. Hey, I gotta move. You gotta stay moving and do what you gotta do. And if you're, I'll say, young-minded, you'll sit and throw a pity party and throw a tantrum, and then it's not fair, and it's not. It's not. And no one ever told us it would be. No one ever told us that, no matter what you do every day in life is going to be fair. No matter how you apply yourself, good, bad, and ugly, if you go to college and you do the right thing and you do, no. There's people who do the right thing every day and they catch a stray bullet. There's people who do wrong every day and will live the rest of their life out and could be 100 years old. So it's like, no, life isn't fair. But you make the best of it and you grow. Evolve. If you don't evolve, it's like you're going to stay stuck. And if you stay stuck, you're dead. That's my piece. Car meditation, fight for your life.